Hello, I'm Jason Hill, a conservation biologist at the Vermont Center for Ecostudies. And if you're watching this video, you probably have a lot of free time on your hands, or you're a mountain birdwatch volunteer. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a 5-minute point count, the basic building block of the mountain birdwatch sampling protocol. I'm going to tell you why you need to scout your route in advance, and I'm going to give you some tips for practicing point counts at a wooded location near your home before June. Now, before you watch this video, I suggest you read the training protocol posted on our website a couple of times. And while you watch the video, be prepared to pause and rewind and take some notes, because I'm going to give some tips that you may find useful. Remember, you don't have to be an expert, just enthusiastic. Let's get started. Scouting your route in advance is critical for a successful mountain birdwatch count, especially if you're new to mountain birdwatch or if you're a seasoned veteran doing a new route for the first time this summer. Ideally, you scout your route in May or at least the day before your count in June. I strongly recommend a GPS unit and or a smartphone with an app like Gaia GPS that allows you to download aerial imagery and topo maps to your phone for offline use. You can't expect to have cell phone coverage in the mountains. Remember, it will be completely dark when you locate your first 1 or 2 sampling points on the route on the morning of the count. A GPS unit is optional, but it makes life so much easier. You'll find the sampling stations for the first time by matching up the GPS coordinates, photos, and trail descriptions from the route document that I send you in April. These documents are also posted on our website. Be aware that things change in the mountains. If your point description mentions a fallen tree across the trail, don't be surprised if that tree isn't there anymore. Sampling stations are spaced approximately 250 meters apart, straight line distance. Now, when you're scouting your route, this is a perfect time to update the route conditions and sampling point descriptions and take new photos if needed. Don't be shy about updating these photos and descriptions. This is your route now. If you're a veteran to the route, you probably haven't read those descriptions in years, and it's probably time to update them. These descriptions should be informative but concise. Also, try a practice point count at each sampling station while scouting your route, even if it's in the middle of the afternoon. After scouting your route, contact me with any concerns or discrepancies, and we will sort them out together. Okay, let's talk about conducting the actual mountain birdwatch survey. You can conduct the survey on any day in June with fair weather. The sooner, the better. In fact, June 1st is a great day. It might rain for the last 2 weeks of the month. Check mountain-forecast.com for local mountain weather forecasts, and you can see forecasts for the immediate future for multiple elevation bands on a mountaintop near you. Let me know ASAP if you realize you won't be able to survey your route this year. I may be able to find someone to temporarily replace you, and don't worry, the route is still yours for future survey years, but I like to get all routes surveyed every year. Take someone with you. Only one person actually detects and counts birds, but a second person is a great idea for safety, and this also serves to train the next generation of mountain birdwatch citizen scientists. Pass on your knowledge and share what you experience up there. You're going to conduct your first point count in the morning 45 minutes before sunrise. So check out the great website suncalc.net. You can navigate to any point and find local sunrise information. It will be completely dark 45 minutes before sunrise. So give yourself plenty of time to hike in the dark to your first sampling point. A headlamp is a necessity to illuminate the trail and your data sheets to keep your hands free while you write. I won't give you a laundry list of stuff to bring, but it's going to be early, so don't forget an alarm clock, a stopwatch of some kind, or your cell phone maybe, to alert you to when each 5-minute point count is over, extra pens and pencils, and extra data sheets wrapped up in gallon-sized Ziploc bags to keep them from getting wet from rain or spilled water. And it's a great idea to have your assistant keep track of the stopwatch for you. But remember, they can't help you count birds. At each sampling station, you'll conduct 4 5-minute point counts. That's 20 minutes of total counting at each sampling point. And these point counts are back to back. There's no pause or break in between 5-minute counts. Upon arriving at the sampling station, wait 2 to 3 minutes for the birds to resume their normal activities. And during the count, you basically just stand in one place. You can turn around, of course, but try to stay within a 2-meter circle. If you have a helper, they should also not be moving around very much. Use your binoculars. Even though the vast majority of bird detections will be made by ear, you'll still want your binoculars. Each 5-minute count is independent, so you only record birds that you actually detected during that 5-minute count. And at the end of each 5 minutes, try to blank your mind and forget all the birds that you just counted. During each 5-minute point count, you only count individuals of each species once. So you might hear the same male white-throated sparrow sing 20 times from the same tree, but of course you only count him once. Now birds move around, of course, so try your best to keep track of their movements and record these movements on the data sheet to help you avoid double counting. More on that in the next section. Now during each 5-minute point count, you estimate the distance to each bird when you initially detected it. We don't ask you to actually record the distance, just whether you think the bird was 50 meters or less from you or greater than 50 meters from you when you first detected it. It takes practice to accurately estimate distance to an unseen singing bird. So practice in April and May. And at the end of this video, I'll give you some tips on how to do just that. Alright, so let's get into the actual count itself and the documents that we'll send you, and these are also available for download on our website. We'll include these bullseyes, and you're going to fill one of these bullseyes out for each 5-minute point count period at each sampling station. So 4 bullseyes per sampling stations. And they'll be numbered on the data sheet. In this case, this is the first point count at a sampling station, minutes 0 through basically 5 minutes. For this first one, there'll be a bunch of information you'll fill out about your name and the date, the sky and wind code. We provide information for you when I mail it out. We'll easily tell you how to fill out the sky and wind code information. Basically, in this circle, you'll be standing right here in the middle. And this circle is set at 50 meters, all right, to help you determine whether birds are, to help you record whether birds were detected within or outside of 50 meters. There isn't a north or south or west or east on this bullseye. What I like to do is line up the north-south, so to speak, the vertical line with the trail or with some obvious landmark in the distance, and you could even draw that landmark in on the data sheet to help you keep track. Now, basically, you're going to use some very basic symbology to help you keep track of the birds that you detect. In this case, we use the 4-digit bird codes just because it's simpler to write, takes up less space on the data form. If you want to write in Blackpoll Warbler, you certainly could do that, but BLPW is much more efficient. If you circle BLPW, that means you heard a Blackpoll Warbler. No circle means that you actually saw a Blackpoll Warbler, which doesn't happen that often. The vast majority, probably greater than 90% of the detections you make are going to be by ear, not by sight, but it does happen. So now anytime a bird moves, you're going to want to record that movement so you don't accidentally double count that individual a couple minutes later. And if a bird moves, you need to use an arrow to draw between the 2 locations the bird was detected at. In this first instance, we heard a winter wren sing, W-I-W-R, and then maybe it sang a little closer, sounded a little louder, and we assume it's the same individual. So we would draw a circle around the winter wren location where it moved to, and a dashed circle means presumed or assumed change. In contrast, a solid arrow means we actually saw the bird fly between those 2 locations. Now, in this case, we have 2 instances of hermit thrush written down. There's no circles, so that tells us both individuals were detected visually, and there's no arrows between the 2 hermit thrushes. That tells us these are 2 separate birds. And that's probably something you'd also want to indicate, make a comment about on the comment form. 2 birds, maybe they were a pair and you want to make a comment about that, for example. And in this case, we have 2 birds, 2 males who are countersinging with each other. So they're singing, so there's circles, and the T symbol in between them just means that they're directing their vocalizations at each other. Now there are a lot more point count symbols out there that you can find on the internet, and we don't use all those, so you don't need to worry yourself about that. So take a minute to review all the information on the left-hand side of the page. That's all the information you really need to fill out the mountain birdwatch sampling forms. All right, so here we are at, the first point count at a sampling station. And remember, each 5-minute period, you're going to fill out its own bullseye period. So we'll start the count. What I use is I have an alarm clock app on my smartphone, and it's just set to repeat every 5 minutes, and it beeps, at the end of 5 minutes, let me know that that point count period is up, and then you move to a new bullseye and start filling that one out. All right, so you start your count after you've you walk up to the count, you give the birds a few minutes to calm down, get used to you standing there. You stand in the center of the circle the whole time, and you look over and hey, there's a couple of black-capped chickadees foraging together. Now, in this case, there's no circles, so you saw them, and there's no arrows between these two observations of BCCH, black-capped chickadees, so that tells me that these are two different individuals, and I'd probably make a comment about that on the comment page that maybe these were a pair and you observed both of them at the same time. And I should say, if you make a mistake when you're recording out the data, you can try to erase it or really scratch it out to make it really clear what your final decision was. All right, so another minute goes by, let's say, and you hear a winter wren sing its beautiful trill way off in the distance. And a couple minutes, another minute later, you hear a red squirrel chatter way off in the distance, and you decide that both of these individuals are greater than 50 meters away from where you're standing. So you draw them outside the 50-meter circle. All right, our first bicknell's thrush. Now, what's going on here? Think back to the couple slides ago, right? You can tell that we initially detected this bicknell's because it was singing greater than 50 meters away from us. And then maybe it went silent for a little bit, and then it popped back up and sang even closer to us. Now you're going to have to use your best judgment, whether that's the same individual or maybe a different individual counter singing. But in this case, we listened for another minute and we only heard one bicknell's in that area, and we determined that it was the same individual. It had just moved closer. So the dotted arrow indicates that it's the same bird, but that we didn't actually see the movement, we only inferred it. All right, now what's going on here? That's right, we have two white-throated sparrows. We both detected them because they were singing, and they are counter-singing against each other. There's two males defending their territories, right? Now, let's say a Cooper's hawk, buzzes through your point count area and scatters the birds, including these two white-throated sparrows. And you see one of the white-throated sparrows fly off to the upper right, to greater than 50 meters away, and it's a solid arrow. So that tells you that you actually observed that movement. And the white-throated sparrow code up here is not circled, so again, that tells you that you actually saw this bird and saw the movement. Now this individual over the other white-throated sparrow on the left-hand side, maybe it went quiet for a few minutes, and then it popped up over here and sang again, and you deducted that that is the same individual. So the dashed arrow between these two birds, between these two WTSP, indicates that it's the same individual, but that the movement was not actually observed, it was inferred. Are you with me? All right. Now it's if you choose, in this case, because you detected the Cooper's hawk, you would also circle down here for non-focal species detected. You would circle yes. Whether you choose to record that Cooper's hawk on this bullseye or on the comment page, or whether you choose not to, you detected a non-focal species, so you would circle yes there. And again, that just influences how we share your data with eBird, whether we submit it as a complete or incomplete checklist. One other thing I should briefly say, so for these two black-capped chickadees that we initially visually detected, if one of them called or sang a minute or so later, we do not need to, then circle the BCCH symbol. The symbol you use, circled or uncircled, is just how you initially detected the bird. All right, so then we would tally up our species. Okay, the two black-capped chickadees are obvious. Two individual birds detected less than 50 meters from us. The winter wren and the red squirrel were detected greater than 50 meters from us. But what about the bicknells? It was initially detected greater than 50 meters away, and then it moved closer within the 50-meter circle. And what do you do there? Well, remember, you only record the distance to the initial place of detection. The initial detection distance is all you care about. So in this case, the bick was initially detected greater than 50 meters away. So over here in our table, there's one individual detected greater than 50. That's it. So for the white-throated sparrows, again, initially detected two individuals within 50 meters. The fact that this bird eventually flew away during that 5-minute point count outside the circle doesn't have any meaning to us. So over here in the table, we would record it as two white-throated sparrows detected within 50 meters of the observer. Now, we provide blank pages for comments intentionally because for most point count stations and point counts, you'll have very few comments. If something interesting happens or you discover a nest or you see an unusual number of individuals together, like three or four individuals, you probably want to make a comment to remind yourself and us later that these in fact were 3 or 4 different birds and that you didn't accidentally double count. Whatever you do, make sure to make it crystal clear what sampling station and what point count period your comments refer to. So in this case, right, I have route number 400 at the top, sampling station 1, and for the first point count, 0 to 5 minutes, I had no comments, and that's often. You'll often have no comments for the point count. During the 5 to 10 minute period, the second point count, I detected 2 American robins and 1 downy woodpecker. And in the third fictitious period, I heard 3 white-throated sparrows, and I'm just making a comment that I heard all 3 individuals sing at the same time, so I'm certain that there are 3 birds and that I didn't accidentally miscount. So you do that for each station, and whatever you do, just clearly designate which station and what point count period each comment refers to. And you could draw a heavy line in between them or a box like I've done. And this datasheet, the blank page, is also a great place to update route descriptions or the hike-in, or and remember, if you take new photographs of the sampling station, you probably want to write down what direction you were facing and what time you took the photo, so you remember later what photo matches up with which sampling point. Okay, here are some tips for practicing point counts. And if you need a little more practice, don't worry, we all do. Now, April and May are great times to start practicing. The bird sound travels farther in the open, so practice in a forested environment, like those you'll experience on your route. Practicing point counts will help you become more familiar with the protocol, data sheets, and our data recording practices, and will increase your confidence. Now, most observers worry about 2 things: correctly identifying all the songs and calls they hear, and correctly estimating the distance to each bird you detect. There's no substitute for lots of listening to the audio tracks on our website to become familiar with those songs and calls. Listen to those calls once a day for a month, and you'll be fine. Now, to correctly estimate distance, you simply need to practice. First, you need some way to measure out 50 meters. Maybe it's a marked up rope, or I'd suggest that you practice taking 1 meter steps alongside a metric tape measure. With 15 minutes of practice, you can get really good at consistently taking 1 meter steps. Okay, you'll need some practice at estimating what 50 meters looks like. So locate a bird in the woods, estimate the distance to it, and then pace it off. You'll be surprised at how quickly you get better at estimating the distance. And once you have an idea of what 50 meters looks like, you'll want to start learning what 50 meters sounds like. Standing in the woods, listen for a bird song. But this time, don't look for the bird just yet. Make an educated guess for the bird, and then start measuring your steps in that direction
until you flush or see the bird. You'll be substantially better after 1 hour of practice, really.
Remember, you don't have to be an expert, just enthusiastic. Like the hundreds of mountain birdwatch citizen scientists before you, you can do this. Send me an email with any questions, help spread the word about mountain birdwatch, and happy birding this June. I'll see you on the trails.